The door is closed, so we're going to get started. My name is Guillermo. Thank you very much for attending this panel. And I was hoping to do a little introduction. If everybody will introduce themselves very briefly. And then we have a little agenda, but of course, the group is actually very small, so feel free to start asking questions right away. So I'm a principal investigator at Biogen. I've been working at Biogen, leading a research lab for the last 2 years, but I'm also a member of the external innovation team. And my focus in particular is in the preclinical stage, so we are divided in preclinical and clinical. I'm focused on the preclinical, going all the way from faculty and early startups to proof of concept.
Thank you. My name is Greg Freilish. I work at Takeda Pharmaceuticals here in Cambridge. I'm part of an organization called the Center for External Innovation. It's the business development group for all of R&D at Takeda. We cover all therapeutic areas that Takeda is focused in, which includes oncology, GI, CNS, as well as now rare disease after the Shire acquisition. My focus for the last almost 5 years has been oncology, business development, and transaction strategy. We have a near-term focus on building cell therapies as well as a number of other modalities in immuno-oncology. And yeah, that's me.
Hey, my name is Javier Cote Sierra. The same as you, Guillermo, I was a scientist leading teams for 12 years, and then I transitioned from discovery to business development or external innovation. And about 4 years ago, I joined Pfizer in external innovation in inflammation and immunology. I'm immunologist by training. And about 2 years ago, I joined Sanofi in the external innovation. I'm the head of the external innovation for inflammation and immunology, leading a small team. And at Sanofi, we cover 3 main areas because the Regeneron collaboration, we have dupilumab. So we have dupilumab is approved for atopic dermatitis and respiratory. So dermatology and respiratory are 2 areas of focus for us. And the third one, it is rheumatology because we have Kevzara. So I cover these 3 main areas.
Hi, my name is Jennifer Ma, and I work in the business development for NIBR. So I want to take this opportunity to explain Novartis a little bit because it's a rather complicated organization, and we have, hundreds of BD people that sit with different business units. NIBR is the Institute of Biomedical Research. So our mandate covers all of early research for Novartis, starting from the discovery stage all the way through what we call clinical proof of concept, and that would be a phase 2A data. So you may meet a lot of different people from Novartis. There are people who work within the franchise business units. They tend to look for clinical stage assets. You'll meet those of us here who sit within the research business unit, the research and early development business unit. And then of course, my colleague from the venture team will be speaking later today. And they are sort of a strategic as well as financial venture fund. So there's a lot of business development units. So I sit in the NIBR business development business unit, and again, I actually have spent the bulk of my career doing business development. Before this, I was at AstraZeneca MedImmune, and I covered search and evaluation, business development, and portfolio strategy for them in the autoimmune business franchise, as well as earlier than that in infectious disease. So I've been a bit more of a business development generalist. And then before that, I was in ventures, and I was also at a small biotech. But I was trained as an organic chemist. So.
Hi, I'm Mark Stensick. I am from the Merck Innovation Hub. So we started the concept of our innovation hubs about 5 years ago, which is about the time I joined Merck. And we're in Cambridge. We also have hubs in Shanghai, London, and San Francisco. And the whole goal of that is we're a full-function business development group, including venture capital. And our remit is geographic area. We cover the Northeast here in the Cambridge hub, as well as eastern side of Canada, and our remit, similar to the Novartis, is anything that's clinical proof of concept, with most of the emphasis being on research. And the whole goal was to really embed us. We've also built out our research labs in Cambridge, San Francisco, and London as well. So to be embedded with our research teams and really to try to find what the next great research is, regardless of therapeutic area. Obviously, being Merck, we do spend a lot of time in oncology and IO, but we are agnostic to looking at therapeutic areas as well as platforms and technologies.
Thank you, Mark. So I think everybody kind of introduced themselves and touched upon my first topic, which was what are we looking for? But that's as a generic as a company. But let me switch a little bit and ask you guys, what are we looking for when we're connecting with a company? What is that, the key aspect that we are interested? I know it's a very broad and generic question, but it's so fundamental, I think, at this particular meeting.
If I may, let me start. So in the case of my two previous companies, Pfizer and Sanofi, I think something that the entrepreneurs should take into account is the focus of the company. And also because we are looking for companies and deals based on our strategy and our focus. So in the case of what I'm looking is, okay, number one, because I work with the TAs, with the therapeutic areas, so I'm working very closely with commercial and also with research, and what is the strategy. And based on the strategy and focus, then I'm going to look for companies. If the companies are out of focus, so I politely decline. But if the company or the platform or the asset in quite early in lead optimization, lead identification, even preclinical, even phase 1 or phase 2, because I covered up to phase 3, then I start the conversation with the company. So that's the first thing that I look into that. Now we can go deeper, more detail into the asset, but the first step is that. I don't know if somebody wants to.
Yeah, please go ahead, guys.
Okay, please.
So I think that I was listening to the earlier panel, and they talk a lot about entrepreneurs and knowing the expertise of entrepreneurs. I think that NIBR in particular is a very science-driven organization. We very much focus on the science and the scientists involved. We want the scientists to be very engaged in whatever company or project they happen to be working on. And we that's sort of the starting point for us. In terms of therapeutic area, I think like Mark, we are sort of a fully diversified pharmaceutical company, so we basically cover all sort of therapeutic areas, and not surprisingly for people who follow the press, we have obviously an increased emphasis in cell and gene therapy space. We're very invested in some of the early stage platform that we sort of are thinking that are going to sort of, fundamentally change how we think about therapeutics. So we're looking for very cutting edge early stuff. We're also doing a lot of investments in the cell and gene therapy space.
Great. So I think one of the exciting things about what we're doing at Merck, since Ken Frazier emphasizes this a lot, we invest in research. So we're not specifically looking for a therapeutic area or something to kind of fill in the gaps in our pipeline. Our remit is to find kind of the next new thing. And the example I'll give is we started the research lab in Cambridge, and their whole focus is on the microbiome. So they're just doing investment into microbiome, just trying to understand the biology. And I remember when Ken came to open up that lab, people are asking him, well, what does success look like? How do you measure metrics? And he's like, no, it's not about the metrics of success. It's about investing in research and trying to figure out what the new key truth is going to be, and trying to do that now. So that's been our emphasis, and that's kind of made my job exciting, because it's not like some of the old days of pharma where it's like, here's the chart of the things we're looking for, and if you have one of these, we'll talk to you. It's, we're talking to all the exciting venture capital, we're talking to all the entrepreneurs and we're talking to all the academics and trying to figure out, what's going to be that next new wave of technology.
Right. Great.
I would just echo the other panelists' comments. I mean, science really drives decision making when we enter into any partnership. I think there's a lot of science out there, so from the standpoint of just being able to process all the information and find signals within all of the noise, I think there are certain things that create interest for us, whether it's a high-profile publication, whether it's a syndicate of investors that we're familiar with, whether it's management teams that come around technologies. Those are sort of signals that validate the science and help us cut through some of the noise, but at the same time there's a lot of interesting science that hasn't yet gotten to the point of attracting those kinds of syndicates or management teams yet. So I think we're really science driven and work from very early stages, whether it's faculty members at the university stage to phase 3 assets.
So let me, if I may, so I said with the strategy, but at Sanofi as well, so we cover from research collaboration all the way up to phase 3. And within the TA, each TA, oncology, inflammation immunology, rare diseases, rare blood diseases, neuroscience. So each TA, they have some budget for research collaboration, quite early research collaboration. And again, it's science driven. So the head of the research discovery, he has his own budget to look for new ideas. So we have collaboration with PIs and universities. So looking for new targets or target validation or new ideas. But if it's something with a company that they already have an asset, so they come to me. So however, I made the connections between the PIs and universities and then the TA, because and then we work together, of course. This is science, again, it's science driven. Science will drive the innovation.
I agree. I think that, if you listen to everybody, we are all saying bottom line the same thing. We are all interested in the science. So if the science is solid, and that's a general discussion we have at Biogen, if the science is solid, we are interested, and it may not necessarily be focused exactly on the exact therapeutic areas we are interested, but if it's adjacent enough, if it's relevant enough, and again, I echo what Mark said, what's the next big thing? I think we all here sitting thinking, how do we find the next big thing? So if you guys have the next big thing, just come to us. We're looking for you. That's right.
Yeah, maybe let me make one comment, one example. I think it's nice we share experiences, what we have seen in the past. I met a PI from the UK, and then he had a great idea about one cytokine. And the cytokine was been discovered and published many years. But his focus, one of his PhD, he discovered a new biology. So he moved to Singapore to do translational work and to work more in the biology. And now he founded a company. It was a great biology we met, and then everybody is now looking about that new cytokine in fibrosis, multiple applications. So he by himself, he decided, okay, with the data that I have is not enough to bring to bring the attention to us. He knew that he needs to develop more, more the biology, more in vitro, and then he started his own company. So this is something that is science driven.
So now that he has his own company, and I'm going to use it as a segue for the next topic. So how do companies connect with us, and how do they pitch to us? And I'm going to paraphrase something you said, Javier, at some point. What are the mistakes and what are the key messages that companies should be delivering?
Yeah, we can take that into how to pitch to us, and then what mistakes you should avoid. So let's start with how you pitch. Tell a story. That's the first thing. Sometimes we meet, I'm sure, with tech transfer officers with one pager. I mean, sometimes this is maybe not enough or to grab our attention. I am saying that you need to submit a like 80 slides deck, no, but at least enough that you tell a story. What is the secret sauce? What is your compound? What is different from your competitors? That's critical, because we have our commercial. We are working with commercial, and then we are looking for 12, 14, 16 years ahead of that compound. How do you see your compound later on? And then if you are very early, again, what is your idea is going to be different, because you might not have enough data. Maybe you are not going to have pharmacology or biology or DMPK or safety talks, but at least how you are going to differentiate. That's something you tell us, then maybe we can go in to talk to our colleagues, and then we can write. I don't know if somebody else can comment.
So I want to contrast a little bit our feedback to the panel that occurred earlier on with the group of angel investors. So I had the privilege of listening to them talk about the pitch process there. And I think many of them profess to be generalists, and they're life sciences investors that cover a wide disease area, and they really want you to kind of have a good elevator pitch and put it in the right context and talk about impact. I think that those are very important, and it fits in the context of tell a story. But oftentimes I see companies come in with a pitch deck that's expend an enormous amount of time, and a lot of times when I'm flipping through these slides, I'm like, well, yes, we're Novartis. We know how important immuno-oncology is. So can we get to the point of why your program is different? I do think that, just heard the panel talk about how important science is and how many of us are trained as scientists or work very closely with people who spend a lot of time deep in the space. And what we're really looking for is the unique insight that differentiate your particular project or program or platform from the other people. And so I think my biggest message is sort of know your audience, right? You understand what pitch to send to what audience. And this particular audience, I think, is a very sophisticated consumers, right? Most of us regularly read, Science, Nature, and New England Journal of Medicine, right? So you should assume that is your audience. I think that's fair. And that you should kind of, talk about the context of the impact of your science to that audience. So that would be one of the kind of mistakes, sort of how to pitch.
Yeah. Now, the one thing I'll add, though, is before you even get to the pitch is how do you get in front of us? How do you get to Merck? How do you get to Novartis, right? I think one of the important things from my experience is just connections. I liken it to like a resume. I mean, you can send a non-confidential deck, you can cold call and send them out, but like a resume, you're going to go through the HR process, and it's going to take forever, and it might sit on someone's desk. So really look into connections, right? How do you? There's always, especially if you're in Cambridge long enough, there's always 1 or 2 degrees of connection between everyone, right? I'm sure in this panel we're all connected somehow. Look at your SAB, look at your investors, look at your management, and see, it helps to have someone, introduce you into the company that will vouch, because, you look at our companies and how big they are, and you think, well, what's a few $1 million, to a company the size of Merck? But that's research dollars, right? And we're fighting and scrapping for research dollars, right? So a few $1 million in research is a lot of money. I mean, you can ask our MRL colleagues. So yes, $1 million or a few $1 million is a lot. So it helps that you have people that you can trust, or an SAB or management that we know and trust and understand, because every dollar we're worried about as custodians of that dollar. So, is it in good hands? Are we? It's not just the idea, it's the management, it's the execution team, it's the scientists involved. So I can't emphasize enough how connections are very important.
Yeah, I agree, and that's super important actually. If your scientific board, it's sound, it's connected, that's a big plus on our eyes, because we're still always focused initially in the science. So if the science is strong, if the scientific players, all the players are in place, that makes a huge thing.
Maybe one secret, I think I'm assuming it happened in your companies. When the deck is coming from the head of research, everybody was like, okay, you have to go and look into that immediately. So it comes from the president of R&D of the companies. I was in my previous company and it's happening now. So you manage with your scientific advisory board, and usually they are PIs with high-level profile or CEOs, or those are well connected. And it comes through them, then we are, okay, this coming from the president of R&D is because, that's something that in my previous experience, and it's not only me, but my colleagues as well, like, okay, that's something that is maybe a secret. Now and then, what you just said about the pitch, about let's suppose you have the connections, and then we get the deck into our hands, and then we're going to look into that. So maybe it's, then going back to what you should avoid. Again, tell a story, but then something that you should avoid is the elephant in the room. And the elephant in the room is what is the holes that you have? What is the technical risks? What are you don't identify yet the molecular target, or maybe you don't know completely the molecular mechanism or the mode of action, be upfront. Tell us. We don't have that data, but we are doing it, we are planning to do it. So you tell us in advance, it creates some credibility from you to us, and then it's going to be faster for us for review.
Just one final thing, I think, especially on the latter part of what you're talking about. We at Takeda Oncology see 600 to 700 opportunities a year, and we'll meet with a couple hundred different companies or opportunities per year. And so I'm trying to think, maybe provide a little perspective on the gestalt of like what is a successful interaction and what sort of resonates with our teams. And yes, things that come from the chief scientific officer, we do look at those differently, but at the end of the day, it's really the scientists that would be working with the company who will make the call. It's not the chief scientific officer. He's going to listen to his people generally. That's not always the case. No. But so I think connections are important, and then the tone of the pitch, humility, what Javier was talking about, humility, and just and then Jennifer's point around the pharma company is going to be deep in the science. We're going to have a very good view on the competitive landscape. So really spending some time being realistic about where your program sits and what the gaps are and how you feel like a partnership would help address those and accelerate and differentiate yourself from the pack. And I think I think one of the other things to do is to not view a lack of a partnership coming out of an engagement as a loss. I think each time you have the opportunity to get in front of a group that is deeply in the field, do as much as you can to extract information from the other side as well. What is the strategy? What is the feedback? Can we get feedback as to what you saw in the data that we presented and its weaknesses, and how we can address some of the concerns that you saw? So I think view these interactions as real opportunities to start to address the technical package.
So I think, again, it's a great segue to my final topic before we open to questions. But so how do companies avoid mistakes? And I can start by saying, do your homework and learn what the strategy of the large strategy of the company is. Like I said at the beginning, we are interested in science. Fundamental biology is super relevant, but Biogen is, for example, interested in CNS and immunology and adjacencies. So if somebody working on antibiotics connects to me because they want to share their deck, I may read it, but I may not. So do your homework, connect to the right companies, find the right people within the company if you can. I know it's hard sometimes because it's hard to penetrate the cloud of big pharma. I've been on both sides, so I know. But these are great opportunities, you know. We're going to be walking for a while after the presentation, so, you know, feel free to reach us, or reach to me. So common mistakes, guys, that you can share.
Instead of common mistakes, can I follow up on your point about sort of doing your homework? You know, when it comes to pitching, it's really interesting. You know, we talked a lot about sort of knowing who your competitor is, knowing your competitive landscape, because we will know it, right? And that's the question on our mind that we want you to address, and what differentiates you from your competitors, and why we should deal with you versus the next person. I do think that oftentimes, you know, when I talk to companies, I feel like I'm kind of repeating the point. I thought I had a fresh point. I feel like oftentimes when we talk to companies, you know, they come to us with something that fit really well with their portfolio, or something, you know, so they say, oh, Novartis, you know, we know that you have Cosentyx, and so therefore you must be interested in another IL-17.
Right.
All right, so you kind of have to think through like the perspective of the big company, but that's not to say you shouldn't approach companies that already have like very strong investments in certain areas, because yes, we are very invested in the dermatitis space because we have a very successful products there, and we're always looking for the next iteration. But you've got to tell us why, you know, you're going to, you know, become 6 years later and beat our, you know, billion-dollar product. So you need to kind of understand, again, this is very much a really understanding who you're talking to and what your customers are, right? Or, you know, there's a little bit of saying, okay, well, so, you know, if you're in dermatitis and this isn't, you know, this is, you're in the antibody space, we have a small molecule, like that's a really smart way to kind of pitch to us, right? So I do think that you want to understand your target company's portfolio, but you also need to understand why they want your product.
Exactly.
Right.
Yeah, yeah. Again, I think this is very, very critical, very important. Know your audience, know if your compound is going to fit our portfolio. This is a classical example. For us, if we have the same, oh, you have an antibody against for atopic dermatitis. This is another antibody, so the answer is no. However, if your compound might fit a different patient population, that, for example, Dupi is not, then okay, this is going commercial, we are going to be excited, the scientists are going to be excited, what is the mechanism of action? And commercial, of course, we love it, because it's going to be different from our compound. Yeah. So that's something, or maybe we see a lot of, I say, we are up top of the you know, reading papers all the time, and maybe we know you have a mechanism of action, and because we have our own precision immunology translation, and we have our own data, and we have, okay, that mechanism of action you don't know, but we know. And then we can, you come to us with a new idea, okay, I am planning to use this in this particular area, and I said, well, can you work it in that particular area? Are you open to perform a different in vivo experiments that then I might be interested. So if you listen to us, and I have one experience in one company in Asia, I found they have really nice mechanism of action, and we knew based on our own translation of medicine that if they do this study in vivo, we could be interested. They went back, performed the experiments, and then said, look, yes, you are right. The in vivo experiment showed that it's highly efficacious in that model. Okay, we start talking to them. So this is something that is listening to us is critical. Sorry that I'm talking maybe too much.
No, not at all. I think, you know, just emphasizing when talking about mistakes, stuff, common things that we talked about, you know, I think transparency builds credibility, right? So especially when you're sending your non-confidential decks or your pitch decks, you know, don't hide things, because they're going to come out in diligence, they're going to come out in the confidential decks, and then you lose all credibility. And I think the other thing that was brought up was, you know, if you meet with someone, if you meet with us, and, well, we say, look, it's not going to work at this time, you need more data, which will be a common theme, you know, don't take that as a no, right? Take that as it's a long-term process. So many of the deals that we've done have taken 2-3 years of just, you know, helping to guide companies, like you don't have the data we're looking for. If you want to talk to a pharma, here's some of the experiments you should run, or here's some guidance. So that's valuable to you. And again, don't take that initial no as a no, I'm not going to talk to these people again. Keep the dialogue going. You're going to learn a lot of value out of that, get guidance out of that, and eventually might lead to a deal down the road.
Yeah, those are super important topics. I agree, and kind of to tie everything, think about us and our background as our scientific background. So if we say, look, why don't you do this experiment? Why don't you try this model? Why don't you try your molecule in this particular area? That's because we may know something that it's super relevant. And sometimes, at least Biogen does, and I'm sure other companies do that, sometimes we're happy to partner and fund some of those extra experiments. Sometimes, with very little help from our side, we can help redirect your molecule, redirect your area to something new. So take those feedback, to the core. I think that's super relevant.
We can sign an MTA, for example. And if you are open, then you can give us the molecule to us. We have a lot of models in our companies, so we can run those models internally as well.
So
maybe I have a common mistake. Yesterday I was thinking, okay, what is like, so for example, when you say, we don't have competition. So this is okay, tell us why really you don't have competition. So this is something that is a common mistake that I hear. You mentioned hiding data. That's something that's a common mistake. Be upfront. Your credibility will go up. If you have an asset and it is in early discovery, don't be aggressively with timelines. Okay, I'm planning to do into IND in 12 months. We know in the due diligence will come out because we know we have experience in clinical trials and we know that it takes longer. So don't be aggressive on timelines. And don't be the same defensive in differing opinions. So if you are defensive, so it immediately creates a barrier between you and us. So I think the best collaboration when people are open-minded, we are open-minded, and then it creates a nice relationship. And this is not only one. Feel free to contact us all the time because we are open. So it's like a personal connection is critical. I mean, it's critical. And if we see that you have a good asset, I'm more than happy to go to your company and then have a dinner and then see the data, or I don't know. That's something. Sorry.
Now, the only thing I'll add to what Javier said, because it's probably a pet peeve of mine, is you don't have to oversell, right? By definition, not everything is best in class, right? Not everything is disruptive, right? Just focus on the science and what you have, and you don't have to sell, because most of our management are highly seasoned scientists, and they'll see right through that.
Well, it sounds like we all agree on our end. So with that, I was actually hoping for you guys to ask questions and take advantage of the last 10-15 minutes we have. If there's anything. Yeah.
So I don't intend to cause any trouble with this question. You guys all seem very collegial and agreeable. But when you look at early projects, do you look for exclusivity, or do you ever work with each other? Because you're a big pharma.
So I can answer that and start. Yeah, exclusivity, yes, we do look for that if we're funding research. However, there are times we've worked with our brethren here, in consortiums, in other things. And again, I don't think, there are a lot of times as you get out of research where things become competitive, and I think we all understand the strengths and weaknesses, but I don't think we try to, at least from where we come from, undermine each other. I think it's just, we sell our companies, not try to downsell the other companies, right? So important is fit, right? Can you culturally work together? Because signing the deal is the easy part. It's making that relationship work is the hard part. So you want to make sure culturally, you know, working with Merck is the right place for you.
So I would answer that question by sort of, it really depends on what it is we're collaborating on and what it is we're trying to do with the exclusivity. I think that, you know, as an organization, we understand there's a lot of good science going on in a lot of different places, and we're not trying to block good science. Like, if you're looking at, say, a platform, right, then we think, okay, well, maybe this is something where we can kind of form a consortium and do a club deal. And I know that there was like another rock, Alley Mouse, I forgot the name of the company, right? But like, you know, we do kind of joint investments to kind of do, like, to generate really interesting research tools, really interesting early data to kind of help shape the direction of science, you know, perhaps interesting targets, et cetera. Where we kind of get nervous and we start thinking about exclusivities is how close do you get to being able to create patent estates to kind of protect your competitive advantage for the investment you're about to make, right? So I think that sometimes when we collaborate with a company, especially if I'm going to start showing you the molecules that I'm putting into things, then yeah, you know, I would want to implement ways to kind of protect that information. And so that's when you kind of start walking into these things where a lot of what we're trying to do is to just make sure that we create layers of protection for the therapeutics we're trying to introduce because we're about to make significant investment in it.
There was a question.
Yeah, I'm Stephanie Maris from UCSF. So we're spinning companies out, and my question to the crowd on the panel is, how early do you want to see us? Do you want to see us before proof of concept in mice, before proof of concept in man? You know, when we're still just spinning out, are you interested in maybe funding the next experiment to make sure it's something you're interested in?
I mean, I can speak for us. We're definitely interested pre-spin out. I mean, we'd love to see if science is, you know, attracting a syndicate. You know, we would like to be engaged at that level.
Attracting a syndicate as in already got venture interested?
Yeah, or
Yeah.
if from the TTO's perspective, you've got, you know, a leading investigator with some compelling in vivo proof of concept, we'd be interested to speak at that stage, certainly. But there doesn't have to be an interested VC syndicate at the time, but certainly if you're in that process of assessing whether or not it's going to spin out or not, you know, that's something we'd be very interested in looking at that stage.
I think companies are going, you know, earlier and earlier. I mean, we have master agreements with a lot of universities. Just that we're funding basic fundamental research, and we've been talking to some of you guys at UCSF, for example, to generate that. So I think all of us were probably agreeing that we're going earlier and earlier and earlier.
I always want that definition though. What does earlier mean?
Oh, okay, gotcha.
And I'm not talking about sponsored research. I know everyone wants to do that with us.
Right.
But I'm talking about we're spinning companies and they don't have venture capital involved because we're too early.
They may have
So-
a tool compound
Oh, I
or
see, gotcha.
an antibody. If there's new biology, we want to know about it. If there's something that's cutting edge and there may not be, you know, lead candidate molecules against it, but there are, you know, indications that some new biology is at play to affect a disease state, then we'd be absolutely interested in discussing that stage.
Maybe one comment. Absolutely, I agree. The earlier, I mean, we can start collaborations very early. However, it will depend on the disease. And I'm going to give you one example. We are interested in respiratory. But within respiratory, let's say asthma is our top priority, then COPD, and then IPF, pulmonary. So you bring me an idea with very early that it fits in our strategy within asthma. I said, yes. I don't care how early. It is good biology, novel mechanism of action, is going to be different. Doesn't matter, we find the money. If you find the same asset for IPF, that is our third priority, then I might say, maybe no, it's not for us. Maybe for a different company, not for us. I would like to see maybe more in vivo data and maybe a compound that is more advanced because it's a different, it is part of our strategy.
The one thing I'll add to that from the business and transaction side, I don't know your institution because I'm account of the East Coast, and I think a lot of the institutions here are being more sophisticated in how they spin things out. But there are academics, and I've had this conversation with venture capitals as well. When they spin it out, they'll put these really draconian hooks into the spin out so that it makes it difficult to provoke venture capital and pharma to work together or even buy these startups.
What kind of hooks?
Just hooks into money coming back to the institution or diligence coming back to the institution. You know, I've seen things like, you know, you've got to be into the clinic with about X amount of years or we can terminate this agreement. I mean, those type of hooks, you know. And again, I've had this conversation with venture capital as well. So just that's another reason from the business side of it why we do like to be involved early to kind of guide some of those discussions before they're spun out.
So of course, you have a West Coast BD group out
do.
there who
We do.
I know the head of it. But I don't think that's the issue he's got anyway.
Yeah.
So you're interested in investing super early, or you want proof of concept?
We're interested in investing super early.
That's another trend that
Yeah.
I presume that quite few companies are actually, and some of us, we do have some sort of a, investing arm. So trying to avoid what Mark was saying. Sometimes it's just, some of the terms of the early investments complicates everything in the long term. So we are advising, for example, we are investing in small companies that we are fairly nice to them in terms of expectations and rights. So we are, and I'm assuming most of you guys are also investing in as the farmers are investing in small startups.
So everyone's doing pre-proof of concept.
Yeah.
Everyone
Sure,
can
and I
help.
There was
think,
oops, sorry.
Sorry, and I just want to mention, I don't know to what extent you guys get involved with the innovation labs, right? We actually fund our own innovation labs as well within the artists, and we will take postdocs and run them in the labs. So, yeah, we go very early.
There was one question on the back, and then everybody got excited about something else.
Yeah.
How would you view, let's say, something a little different, that like an abandoned drug that's found a new indication, it's a 505(b)(2), for example. Let's say it has a large market opportunity, it's within your core focus area, so it's a large commercial opportunity. Maybe it needs dose delivery optimization, things like that, but it has a known mechanism of action. But let's say, because of where it is, it's really not leveraging, your research infrastructure all that much. But let's say it still represents a great commercial opportunity based on your focus. How would you view that?
Well, I'll speak from Takeda and the oncology perspective. We right now place a premium on any investments we're doing innovation. I think 505(b)(2) repurposed kind of assets have to be very advanced clinically. There has to be really near market, very clear view on the commercial opportunity. There's a lot of reform work to be done. If there are clinical studies that still need to be performed, it would be tough for us to be interested.
But for Sanofi, it's the same. I mean, for me too, we are looking for innovation. Innovation is what is driving us. Me too, we are not. And one of the reasons is because is the patent. There are some patent issues right there. The LOE, it is only for I don't know how many years, not for a long period of time. So we would like to prefer the extended LOE, 25 years plus. So
I think LOE is important, but also pricing, reimbursement really are
Yes,
going to be
of course.
demanding. You have to really move the needle to get reimbursed. So anyway,
Right.
filters into that too.
All right, you both raised your hand at the same time, so it's probably the same question. Let's start here and see.
So with this huge explosion of interest in molecular and adaptive immunity, is old-fashioned protein analytics and innate immunity just going to have to sit on the sidelines till this period of history is over? Is there still an appetite for that?
That's
Bit of a loaded question.
Yeah.
It's a bit of a self-serving. I work as an editor for journals in that area,
Yeah.
and I've noticed the tumbleweeds are starting to roll through. So what's your
Well,
view of that? Is it
I
still
mean-
going to be a burning interest, or is it higher
I
and all
think
this other
innate,
stuff?
at least in oncology, innate biology is very hot right now. I mean, the TLR9,
Yeah.
Sting.
On the adaptive side, but on the innate side, I'm asking, on the
Oh, you mean like
macrophage side.
macrophage, yeah.
Yes, exactly. So
So-
on the adaptive side,
Yeah.
it's exploding. On the innate side.
Yes,
Yeah.
the answer is yes. I mean, for
us,
if I speak for Sanofi, and even immuno-oncology, that I work closely with my colleague in external innovation in immuno-oncology, both adaptive and innate immunity, it is high interest for us. You know, not only T cells, I mean, immunocheckpoints, inhibitors or activators in T cells, but also in macrophages and other cells of the immune cells. It is hot, and we are looking into that. We have collaborations with academic groups on that. Even, for example, to start new companies, for example. So we are doing research. Again, through our internal research, we are doing collaborations in that area. It is very high.
Thank you.
Yes.
Nuts and bolts question. To get you the pitch deck, how do we get your email?
Happy to give you a business card.
Yeah. But you go to you Google Sanofi external innovation or Pfizer external innovation, you will find out who to contact.
But not usually their email address.
Sometimes it's hard. I know. LinkedIn is another usual way to connect, I guess, with us. I get decks by LinkedIn from people I don't know sometimes. And I have to see them. I like to see them.
I'm the Chief Venture Officer at WARF, Wisconsin Alumni Research Foundation. We've got nearly $200 million for innovation capital of the technologies coming out of university. One of the programs is what we call WARF Therapeutics, where we take targets from basic research which don't have any intellectual property, and we actually have $50 million to help develop them into therapeutic compounds working with CROs. And then the venture fund invests in them and we pitch them to you folks. My question to you is, with such a program to provide that kind of early preclinical funding in place, generating research and data from CROs, industry level research instead of university studies, what level of engagement would you be interested in talking with us about our projects? Co-funding some of the projects after we identified clear targets? First of all, is that such a program even interesting?
So the challenge with novel targets is, well, it's sort of a double-edged sword. Novel targets, we all want novelty, but we want it to be validated too. So you come forward with a novel target, but where's the validation? If it's validated, then there's too many people, it's too competitive. So it's this weird chicken and egg.
Well, that's what we're trying to find,
So,
to get it to the validated target.
Yeah, so I think the whole value chain, if you want to call it that, is interesting, and there are different points and different examples how we've, at Takeda Oncology, has engaged at several levels, whether it's early stage target discovery, target validation, development of candidates against the novel target. We've sort of done the whole thing. It sounds interesting to me. It's a pretty interesting model. I'd love to learn more.
Yeah, and I would say is probably, it really depends on the target and the disease area you're in. It's very kind of target by target driven. So without knowing the specifics, it's really hard to comment. So the answer is for some, definitely yes, right? These are the targets that we kind of possibly already fished out of our own internal activities, and we're really invested in certain targets. And then there are areas where it feels like it's a good target looking for a good disease area, which, there are a lot of targets that fall into that area as well.
I'm going to talk to inflammation immunology, which is different from oncology. Right now in inflammation immunology, there are a lot of competition. A lot of, first of all, the anti-TNF, then anti-IL-17s, and then anti-IL-23s. And then you see the clinical pipelines of many companies, AbbVie and Pfizer. The clinical, it is heavy, so it's a lot of competition. But now what we are looking, that means that novel targets, yes, we would like, but what kind of in vivo data are you going to generate? What we are asking right now, it is, can you run a head-to-head to compare what is out there in the market? Because we want to see how is different that molecular compared with what we have. And right now I'm asking for even biotech companies And they are doing those experiments. They are now doing in vivo experiments head-to-head with what is out there, even in phase 2, phase 3 clinical trial. And they are showing that they are different. It's surprising. So they are doing that because we need that data. Otherwise, it's difficult for us with preclinical in vivo data to say it's going to be different, yes or no. So anyway, we need to answer that question.
Right, from Biogen perspective, because we are in CNS, we always look for, we really like targets that are genetically validated. So that's definitely something that we put a lot of weight on, genetic validation. So I think we're almost getting there. So I guess there is time for one last question, if anybody.
Actually, I think it's right now.
Not time for questions?
Yeah, sorry.
All right, well, thank you very much, people on the panel, and thank you for coming, guys. Thank you.
Thank you.